Hello and welcome to another episode of Long Live Canada, episode 6. My name's Daniel Tyree. I'm your host for tonight. I'm the founder and chairman of the Dominion Society. I'm here to talk to you tonight about the usual, about remigration. We have a very important episode ahead of us tonight, one that I've been talking about for a few weeks. Finally, we've got, I think, a bit of a lull in the news cycle. Nothing big to talk about, so I thought it would be the perfect time to go through our 11-step remigration plan, step by step by step, and give you guys the rundown, give you guys all the arguments, the logic behind everything we're doing here at the Dominion Society. Before we dive into things, I do want to thank everyone asking about Arthur, about my dog. I appreciate everyone's concern. He is doing well. He's very healthy. He's all fine. He's all recovered. He's out of the cone of shame. He's back to his normal self. So he just a minor thing. He's all happy. He's all happy. All healthy. He's taking a nap over on my bed right now. So I appreciate your concern, guys. I appreciate you guys looking out for Arthur. But he's all good, all healthy. But with that out of the way, I think we can dive right into things. I even was responsible enough to eat dinner before the live stream. So you guys, I have no excuse to end things early. I think we have a bit of a long episode ahead of us, to be honest. Our remigration plan, it's significant. It's significant. We try and tackle all the different issue areas driving Canada's mass immigration crisis, which, as you guys know, is comprehensive. So we'll go through point by point. Yeah, we got the shield pin on tonight. The shield pin. We don't have the Dom sock pin. We got the red ensign pin. This is a special gift that we have for some of our big donors, people who donate over $100. We send them this as a small gift. So if you guys are interested in something like that, you can head over to the website dominionsociety.ca, drop a donation if you can afford it. I know it's a lot of money, but it is a nice little trinket that does represent Canada and our ethnic heritage. So if you can afford it, the support is much appreciated. How you guys doing tonight? It's been a fun week. It's only Thursday, but it's we got some beautiful weather here in Ottawa. It's finally spring, so I'm enjoying it, enjoying my time outside. Yes, you can still get one of them. We have a few left in storage. So if you guys still like a donation, I'm still sending them out. I am doing well. I'm healthy. I'm still dealing with an injury though. It's getting close to recovery, so I can get back to exercising. Arthur heals much faster than I do. I must be getting old, but doing pretty well. Doing pretty well for the most part. But no big interlude this time, guys. I'm gonna jump right into the plan. So, okay, people. If you're familiar with our website, it's not a big website, guys. It's only 3 or 4 or 5 pages, 2 central ones. We got the what is a Canadian, and the most important one, what is remigration. So this is a hefty page, a lot of text. People say, why you got a wall of text? We have to have the substance behind our arguments, right, guys? We have to have the substance. That's important. So we can use our social media for short form content, so we can be simple, direct, viral. But if people are looking for answers, they're all on this page, the whole explanation from start to finish. So I won't run you guys through this whole page. I'm going to assume that you guys know the basics, but I do encourage everyone to check out this page. It does give you all the arguments you need to explain remigration. So, we go over what is a nation, what is creating what is promoting mass immigration, why politicians say it's so necessary, the fertility crisis, the demographic change, the so-called lies that prop up the so-called the immigration consensus. But most importantly, we come down to the bottom. We have here our 11-step remigration page, the plan, the only path forward, remigration. So we'll run you through it step by step. Here we go. We have 3 3 phases, 11 steps. Phase 1, shut the door and discourage settlement. Phase 2, remove non-citizens and incentivize voluntary return. And phase 3, rebuild a cohesive and sovereign nation. 3 simple steps, all important to achieve the future we want for Canada. I've taken inspiration from some organizers, some activists, and so on abroad. I've adapted this plan for the Canadian situation, and this is the result. So we'll go through step by step. I'll try and keep an eye on the chat in case we have any questions throughout. But a great reminder for my friend here, Tristan Jones. Reminder, join the Dominion Society. Before we get into things, if you believe in our cause, if you believe in Canadian nationalism, if you believe in remigration, you need to join the Dominion Society. We're getting things organized on a meta-political level. Regardless of what political party you support, or if you support none of them, you need to get behind the Dominion Society to create the change we need in our society. So head over to our website, dominionsociety.ca, hit the join button. It's $25 a year. You get a nice pin, you get a nice card, and you get to get involved in the movement. So with that out of the way, let's jump right into things. So we have phase 1, a total moratorium on immigration. This is pretty self-explanatory. We want to suspend all permanent immigration for 10 years at least until the situation stabilizes. So for the last 50, 60 years, we don't need that comment up here anymore, as much as I like Tristan. For the last 50, 60 years, since about 1974, Canada has had a net negative fertility rate. And to supplement this, to create infinite growth in our society, to prop up the economy for the elites, they turn to immigration as a solution for our continued population growth. This has caused all sorts of problems in our society. Really, we need to have a positive birth rate in this country. If a country cannot sustain itself, it cannot continue to grow. So this is a baseline thing. We cannot rely for immigration to stimulate population growth any longer. It's caused dramatic change in our society. Canada's quickly becoming unrecognizable as a result of mass immigration, as well as these policies enforcing official multiculturalism, encouraging people to maintain their languages and cultures and so on while living here in Canada. It's created a completely dysfunctional society that we all live in. The sense of community has eroded. There's no common sense of identity anymore. Our politicians tell us we're a nation of immigrants, that there's no mainstream, Trudeau's famous line about how Canada is the first post-national state with no mainstream culture or identity. We reject these notions. This is not an accurate depiction of Canadian history. We do have a common culture and a common myth and a common heritage here in Canada. It's just being constantly undermined by our political class. So the first step to our remigration plan is we need to shut the doors. Mass immigration is driving all the major problems in our society. It's overburdening our healthcare and education system. It's driving down wages. It's creating all this cultural conflict, these imported kind of foreign ethnic feuds between Muslims and Jews and Hindus and Sikhs, different ways of Eritrean migrants and more. The first step is just to close the doors. When the tub is overflowing, you can't just start bailing out water. You need to you need to turn off the tap to start solving the problem. So the first step is a moratorium on immigration. No more people coming in for at least 10 years until we can stabilize the situation, both economically and culturally. So that's very simple. Close the doors. We actually see, the People's Party of Canada has integrated this into their platform. We haven't seen it adopted by any other political parties. Mark Carney has reduced things. He's reduced the annual intake numbers to about 350,000 a year. He's reduced temporary migration, but no one is focused on this very common sense policy We need an immigration moratorium. We need a total suspension, a pause on immigration for at least 10 years until our domestic birth rate can increase, before our culture, like these cultural issues, can subside, and our economy can stabilize in the best interest of Canadians. So that's step one. Very simple, very easy to understand. Step two, we have abolished the temporary foreign worker and international mobility programs. So, for those that are not familiar, there are two major programs for temporary workers to come into Canada on temporary visas. These can be, 1, 2, 3 multi-year visas that are often renewed. The history of this program goes back to the early 70s, when it was initially brought in as an agricultural program. So this was very much for seasonal migration. You'll hear a lot of people when you start commenting or pushing back on the temporary foreign worker program. Our critics, these progressives, these liberals, will always bring up, well, are you going to pick the strawberries? Are you going to work the fields? You get all these kind of catty responses like this, as if this is still what the temporary foreign worker program is, and it's not. It was initially like this for in the early 60s and 70s. It's specifically meant for seasonal agricultural work. So at the end of harvest season, there would be a spike in demand for labor that could not be fulfilled, right? If you have a near full employment rate, there literally isn't enough workers to fulfill these seasonal gaps that only exist for a few months every year. So it made sense to have a limited temporary worker program in order to bring in low skill labor, in order to help with these specifically agricultural sectors. Now, the temporary foreign worker program has been massively expanded since then into all sorts of industries. This happened under Stephen Harper. This is when the international mobility program was introduced, and the temporary foreign worker program was expanded and diversified into other industries beyond just agriculture, things like hospitality, fast food, services, delivery, all these sort of other more permanent roles. Like, again, we went from this seasonal agriculture where we would have an increase in labor market demand for a few months every year, where additional labor was simply required in order to manage our economy. Now it's for fast food jobs, Uber Eats, all these manufacturing, construction, all these things that are more permanent employment. Now it's just there to. Now it's a very elitist project, right? Pushed by the most wealthy in our society, who benefit from having increased labor, because the job market is just like any other market governed by supply and demand. And as you increase the supply of labor, you decrease wages, because that's determined by the intersection of supply for labor and demand for labor. So the wealthiest in our society benefit from things like the temporary foreign worker program, things like the international mobility program, that artificially expand the labor the supply of labor, which results in stagnating or reduced wages. So this benefits people who own businesses, who benefit from reduced wages, driving down their bottom line. But it hurts the average Canadian, who has to take stagnating wages. This is a main driving force behind things like the housing market, the housing crisis. You see, wages just have not kept up with the housing inflation over the last 50 years, partially as a result of things like the temporary foreign worker program. As well, this has adverse incentives on businesses who, if you want to make your business more effective, yes, you do benefit from driving down wages, but the other option is to make your laborers, your workers, more efficient through investment in technology. So over the last 20 years in particular, as this program has massively expanded, we've seen a growing productivity gap between Canada and the United States. And I think the temporary foreign worker program, the international mobility program, are a major driving force behind these things. Without these massive programs that are outsized in Canada, businesses are more incentivized to invest in technology, automation, capital that makes their workers more productive. So as a result, we see this increasing gap between Canada and the America because of programs like the International Mobility Program, because of things like the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. To go back to using agriculture as an example, you can make a single worker much more effective by investing in the necessary technology to make that worker more efficient. That way you don't have to pay for 10 workers. You can pay for one worker with a machine, just like a tractor or whatever the necessary technology is for the industry that you're in. Instead, you can just pay for 10 Indians or 10 foreigners, Filipinos, Chinese people who come here on temporary labor visas, who are willing to accept lower wages, worse conditions, and so on. This has an adverse effect on actual Canadian workers. There was a big controversy on X yesterday, 2 days ago. You guys might have seen it. Rupa Subramanya, a journalist, published an article that went quite viral. People were not happy with her. She said, here we go. Pull that shit up, JB. She said, I used to think Canada's youth unemployment problem was all about the temporary foreign worker program until I started talking to small business owners who can't get young people to show up. My latest. So this went quite viral. Started a lot of conversations on Twitter over the last 2 days. Because of course, if you talk to small business owners, they are in favor of things like the temporary foreign worker program. This does benefit business owners because they benefit from driving down wages. They benefit from providing worse working conditions to employees, and foreigners who are used to who might have lower economic standards, who are used to lower living standards and so on, who don't need to start saving for things like a house in Canada, which is inordinately expensive in the modern time. They're willing to accept worse conditions and lower wages than the Canadian alternatives. Yes, of course, the young Canadians are not going to put up with poor working standards like someone who comes from rural India or whatnot. So yes, if you just talk to business owners, they're going to say that they want more temporary foreign workers. I also question where those business owners might be from themselves, because the temporary foreign worker program is also used in all sorts of immigration schemes. Businesses owned by foreigners, immigrants, use it to bring over their family members, people from their own hometowns, who can then get on a pathway to permanent residency because people that come in through the International Mobility Program, through the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, are prioritized in terms of getting that permanent residency in the long run. So there's also this huge kind of scheme behind the Temporary Foreign Worker Program to bring over chain migration, to facilitate people getting their families and friends and distant relatives and so on into the country through these temporary visas. There's also all these scandals around selling what they call LMIAs. So the main distinction between these two programs, the Temporary Foreign Worker Program and the International Mobility Program, is that to provide to get a laborer through the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, a business needs to provide what they call a labor market impact assessment, an LMIA. You might have heard this term thrown around. And this basically is a report that proves to the Canadian government that there is not a Canadian worker that can fill the labor market gap. That the only option is to import a foreigner on a temporary basis in order to fill this labor market need. Now, we see these trumped up all the time. Businesses will put out basically fake job board postings with deflated wages, things like this, when they use it to prove that no one's interested in the job because they're not offering good enough wages or whatnot. They bring it to the government. Oh, no one's applying to fill this job. I need to bring over a relative. I need to bring over a temporary foreign worker. Or worse, we see a huge kind of black market of fraud where these LMIAs are being sold to people in foreign countries who really want that hope at permanent residency. So they spend money, they buy this, they pay for under the table, they'll pay these businesses to provide a labor market impact assessment to them in order to get that temporary foreign visa on the long term promise of being provided permanent residency. Now, the other thing is when someone comes through the temporary foreign worker program, they are beholden to that one employer who brought them, who provided the labor market impact assessment. As a result, there is a huge kind of power imbalance between the employee and the employer. If they lose their job, they lose their temporary visa, and they'll be sent back to their country. So often employers will abuse this by making workers work, longer hours, worse conditions, and so on, and they can't quit, they can't complain or whatnot without being threatened to lose their job and lose their status and be sent back to their own countries. So again, this whole system acts to drive down wages for the average Canadian. Yes, it's foreigners being abused, but in the broader system, they're dragging down the wages for all Canadians. And then there's the International Mobility Program, which is a much bigger, most of the temporary labor is coming through the International Mobility Program, not the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. Now, the CPC has been decent on this recently. They've been calling for an end to the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, which is a great step in the right direction. The Temporary Foreign Worker Program is a big problem. But the thing is, it only accounts for about 20% of overall temporary foreign workers in Canada. 80% come through the International Mobility Program. Now, the International Mobility Program is even worse because a labor market impact assessment is not required. Employers don't even need to prove that there's not a Canadian that can work the job. They can just bring in these temporary foreign workers. A lot of them are coming through the foreign student program. So they're given, these are kids that are they're on their summer during their schooling, or they've just graduated and they're able to stay in Canada, extend their kind of temporary visa that they got through the schooling system through the International Mobility Program. So that's whenever I see the conservatives talking about the temporary foreign worker kind of crisis, they never talk about the International Mobility Program, which is a problem because it's a much larger program than the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. It's not clear if they're just obfuscating, right? No, the average normie is not familiar with the International Mobility Program. The Temporary Foreign Worker Program, in comparison, is very self-explanatory, right? It has a very direct name. So it's not clear when the CPC speak out against temporary foreign workers if they're talking about the capital T, capital F, capital W Temporary Foreign Worker Program, or if they're talking about temporary labor in general, which would include the International Mobility Program. So this is something that I've been pushing for them to be taking even more aggressive stance on. It doesn't mean much if you're just going to speak out against temporary foreign workers. You need to be speaking about the International Mobility Program as well. So between these two programs, this accounts for a massive part of overall immigration numbers to Canada. This was a program that, again, was massively expanded under Stephen Harper and his immigration minister, Jason Kenney. The International Mobility Program was actually established under Jason Kenney and Stephen Harper. Now, these two programs were massively expanded under Justin Trudeau, and they made up almost half of the massive immigration numbers, especially that we saw in the post-COVID era when immigration spiked to over 1 million people per year. Almost half of those were temporary workers through the international mobility and temporary foreign worker streams. Now, this is something that Mark Carney has been addressing. He has reduced the numbers pretty drastically on the temporary side, both foreign students, international mobility program, and temporary foreign workers. So this is something that we've seen more movement on. There is definitely more popular support against the temporary foreign worker program than immigration more broadly. So we have seen more movement on that, but this is still a massive problem. It's a poor incentive for businesses. It's adversely affects Canadians who get worse working conditions, worse wages. less job opportunities. It drives up unemployment. Right now, we have something like a 7% unemployment rate while we're still bringing in temporary foreign workers. It doesn't make sense at all, right? The temporary foreign worker program only makes any sense when we're at or near full employment and additional laborers are required to stimulate the economy. In this, at this point, when we have a 7-point unemployment rate, it's unjustifiable. It should be zero. It should be zero. We should be sending people back. And as well, this has an upward effect on people say that, oh, they're temporary. Don't worry, they're going back. You can't just lump that in with overall immigration numbers. But the reality is that the temporary foreign worker program, these people, they bring over their children. I don't know why they're allowed to come over with their children who can be put in our education system. They get access to our healthcare system. They overburden that as well. And all these people need a place to stay, right? Everyone needs a roof over their head. So sure, they're not buying houses, but they are renting property, which drives up rental prices, which disproportionately negatively impacts the youngest generation, people like me, poorer Canadians who cannot afford to buy a house and are forced to rent. Now rents are driven up by programs like this. And as a result, housing becomes even more and more out of reach for young Canadians. People like me, I can't afford to save because I need to pay over $1,000 in rent every month. That's money that I could be socking away to try and buy a house long run. But as a result of increased housing prices, rent prices specifically, housing becomes an even more unreachable goal. So the temporary foreign worker program is it's such an adverse effect on Canada's economy. It certainly benefits the richest, the business owners, the people at the top who benefit from decreased wages, who benefit from increased rents, who benefit from increased housing costs, people who hold assets, who are selling houses, who own houses and are renting properties. It does benefit these people. That's the thing. You have to keep in mind that immigration does benefit a certain class, a certain small class, not only the foreigners who want to bring over their friends and family members, but the richest people in our society who do benefit from driving down wages and driving up asset prices. So it's really an inexcusable program. I think that it needs to be pretty much totally abolished. Like maybe there is still space for things like that seasonal agricultural work, those temporary spikes in labor demand. Maybe there's a logic for it there, but even then, I think we in this age of automation and rapid technological change, we need to be encouraging our businesses as much as possible to be on the cutting edge of these things, right? We need to be on the cutting edge of technological change for the benefit of our own people, to make our workers the most efficient they can be in the world, to make ourselves internationally competitive, and even to have any sort of temporary labor program, even if it's scaled back, it does act as an adverse incentive for businesses to invest in capital, to invest in technology, to make their workers more efficient. So really, I think both of these programs, the International Mobility Program and the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, both need to be completely abolished, with all temporary laborers in Canada sent back to their own home countries. So that would be a massive step towards remigration. So many of them are here on just temporary visas, or even not leaving at the end of their temporary visas and staying here illegally and working in the black market. So this is a massive first step. We need to, 1, a moratorium on immigration, no more permanent residents coming over. 2, completely abolish the temporary foreign worker and international mobility programs. Let's see what's going on in the chat quickly before we move on. These are 2 important super chats are broken or throttled. Let's see if I can see what's going on there. So I do want to just a quick reminder to folks to interact with this live stream in any way that they can. Leave a comment, make sure you're following on whatever platform you're watching on. Leave a comment, a like, a retweet, a share, all of that social media mumbo jumbo. helps get more eyeballs on this channel, on this live stream. And if you ask any questions, I'll try and get to them towards the end of the stream. I don't know what's going on with super chats, but either way, I'll answer your questions if I see them coming through. And if you want to leave a donation, please, it is much better to head over to our website, dominionsociety.ca, and leave a donation there. I know your name doesn't pop up on stream, but at least the full funds gets sent into the Dominion Society. That we can use to grow the organization. YouTube takes a 30% cut out of all super chats. So if you want to give your support financially, it is much better to go directly to our website and support that way. Okay, so that's phase 1. Phase 2. Now we move into steps 1 and 2. We haven't even finished phase 1 yet. Step 3, we have restrict birthright citizenship. So Canada currently has some of the most lax birthright citizenship rules in the world. We're totally out of sync with the rest of kind of Western countries, aside from the United States of America. So basically, there are 2 types of birthright citizenships that we see around the world. We have what they call jus sanguinis and jus soli. So jus soli is Latin. Basically, if you're born in the country, you get citizenship. Jus sanguinis is birthright by blood. So if you're born to someone who is a citizen, you get citizenship. So most countries around the world follow that jus sanguinis, that you need citizenship to pass it on to your child. Canada and the United States are out of sync with this. We have excuse me. Canada and the US are totally out of sync with this. Basically, anyone that has a child here in Canada, that child automatically gets citizenship. This leads to all sorts of abuses because people who are non-citizens can have children here. They're incentivized to have children here in order to get citizenship for that child. So we see this practices of anchor babies. We see this practice of what they call anchor babies and birth tourists who are taking advantage of this program because there's huge incentives. If they have a child here, that child gets citizenship, then that child can be used as an anchor to get citizenship for the parents. And then those parents can be used as to facilitate chain migration through Canada's family reunification program. So there's multiple streams in Canada. It's not just economic migrants coming to because they have a job here. About half of all immigrants here are coming through the family reunification program. So people that are parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, uncles, relatives like that, they get priority to come into the system, which again has all sorts of adverse effects on the society. If you have one productive migrant, let's say the father coming here, but he comes here with his wife and his children. These are all dependents. They get to take advantage of all of our social supports, our healthcare system, our education system, and so on. The wife might get a job as well, which is, good. We want to see people integrating into our society, but she's not filling the same market demand that the husband is. So she is, again, artificially increasing the labor supply, driving down wages. So family reunification, and especially if they start bringing the grandparents over who are going to be more dependent on things like the healthcare system, all these dependents, this network, one productive migrant can come with 10, 15 dependents or people that are just going to unnecessarily compete with Canadians. And it can all start with these anchor babies. So there's huge kind of secondary industries around this, right? That facilitate birth tourism. People coming, like pregnant women coming from China, from India, that are just about to have a child. They come here on a tourist visa. They come here illegally. They come here and claim asylum through any of these many pathways. They drop a child here. That child automatically gets citizenship through our very liberal birthright citizenship laws. And then all of a sudden, they can start bringing their whole family through just because they dropped a child here. So this is absurd. Like, we're totally out of whack. No other Western countries like this. Really, the fix is simple. We need to end birthright citizenship. It should only be going to, you need to have at least one parent that is a Canadian citizenship to pass that citizenship on to the child. It's a very simple change. It brings us in line with most Western countries, and it would stop all this abuse of the system through these birthright, through this birth tourism, through anchor babies. This is, everyone knows that this is happening, and it's a very simple fix, and yet we don't see it campaigned on very often. This is also something that the CPC has been pushing back on. They have been calling for changes to birthright citizenship, which is a very positive development. But right now, if you're in Canada, if you're here illegally, if you're a foreign student, if you're a temporary foreign worker, international mobility program, if you're just on a tourist visa, if you're an asylum claimant, if you drop a child here, that child's a citizen. And that means, as well, that means they get access to the Canada Child Benefit, a very generous pronatal program that, most people would assume just goes to Canadian citizens, but it doesn't. It goes to any Canadian resident. So even if you're an asylum claimant, a fraudulent asylum claimant who came over on a tourist visa, who claims that you can't go back to your country for whatever reason, who sits in the backlogged asylum system for years. There's like 300, 400,000 people sitting in our asylum system waiting to be processed. If you drop a child here, you get access to the Canada Child Benefit, which is $8,000 per year per child for children under 6. I think it goes down to $7,000 or $6,500 for children between ages 6 and 12. So there's this massive economic incentive for people to come here illegally, drop a child. They can now start getting on a pathway towards permanent residency, even though they have no reason, no real status to be here. All of a sudden, they get this kind of bogus status, and the government's paying them. Now there's a huge incentive to keep having children, right? All of a sudden, we have a foreigner from India, from China, from the Philippines mostly, and they can have 1, 2, 3, 4 children just to extract money from the state as part of this whole scheme. So this is unacceptable. It's another, just what we call a pull factor, right? These pull factors, these economic incentives for people to come here to benefit themselves, not Canadian society at large, right? Now, like, it's a financial transaction, right? I can just go to Canada, have my kid, and then they'll give me $8,000 a year. Like, why wouldn't I do that? Then I can become a citizen there. Why wouldn't I do that, right? So we have to start cutting down on these obvious pull factors, these obvious means in which our system is being abused. But also, it's not enough to just change the rules going forward. Like, this has been an open abuse of the system for years now. There's millions of, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who have received citizenship through this program that shouldn't have, that knowingly abused the spirit of our laws in order to get on a pathway to permanent residency. And I don't think that we should just put up with that. Like, I don't think it's enough to just solve the problem going forward. We need to do a large-scale audit of these things and retroactively impose these rules. Go back 20 years, back to 2000 at least, and retroactively revoke people's citizenship who got it through this process, who got it through being here on an illegitimate, not as a permanent resident, like people that are coming here as asylum claimants, as temporary foreign workers, as legals, or as whatnot, and receiving their citizenship through anchor babies, through abusing the birthright citizenship laws. These people need to be retroactively have their citizenship revoked and send them back, the whole family. The child who was born here to non-citizens, that's not a legitimate citizenship anymore. And these need to be sent back. Now, we've seen while there has been some positive developments from Mark Carney on the issue of immigration, this is not one of them, right? Not only do they not speak out about this massive issue, they've introduced Bill C-3, which passed at the end of last year, which even extends birthright citizenship even more liberally. This extends it to citizenship to people not even born in Canada, born to people who received permanent residency, Canadian citizenship, and then have children abroad. So people that have come to Canada, lived here for at least 3 years, and then returned to their foreign country, they can have children there, and those children also receive birthright citizenship. So instead of restricting this in a very common sense way, Canadian citizenship should only be passed by citizen parents to citizen children. Instead of restricting this in a very logical way, there we have Arthur making his appearance. They've made it much more liberal. Now you can become a Canadian citizen if you're born to 2 Indian parents, one of which lived in Canada for 3 years, and then we went back to India. Now you have children that are 100% ethnically Indian, born in India, but they're Canadian citizens. So, they can fly over whenever they want. They don't need a tourist visa, whatnot. They can just come here. Maybe they just need healthcare. They'll just travel over, enjoy our healthcare system, then they go back to India. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, Bill C-3 is I don't understand how you can support that. We need to be making birthright citizenship more strict, but it's also not just as I said, it's not enough to just make it more strict going forward. We need to retroactively impose these rules and remigrate people who abused the laws. I think we can massively reinterpret, we'll get into this a bit more, reinterpret how we understand the revoking of citizenship, which is allowed within our Constitution. There are cases in which citizenship can be revoked. We need to broaden the scope of how citizenship is revoked to include these kind of fraudulent abuses of our system to start sending people back. Birthright citizenship is being massively abused. We need to bring ourselves in line with the rest of the Western world and make it so that you need to have at least one Canadian citizenship parent to pass that on to their children. This is just common sense, guys. It's just common sense. Do a quick scan of the chat. Okay. So that's steps 1, 2, 3. Now we're going on to, we're already 40 minutes in. That's insane. 40 minutes in and we're not finished phase 1. Okay. Step 4. So we have step 4. I have a bundle of policies here that I kind of put under the umbrella title of eliminate pull factors and introduce push factors. So we have touched on this concept of pull factors, right? These economic and cultural incentives that pull people here, that make it easy for people to live in Canada. Even Canada's Daniel, no e-girls. Yes, no e-girls. Not even once. No e-girls, guys. None of that. 3 hours for each. No one has time for that. We have to make this clear and concise. Clear and concise. No one wants to listen to me speak for 9 hours on remigration. I don't think so. How do we handle the stateless person problem? There's going to need to be diplomacy as a part of remigration, right? And I think this will be increasingly achievable as more and more Western countries adopt this kind of remigrationist stance. There will be more pressure on third world countries, like especially massive offenders like India, who are kind of having the same impacts on Western countries around the world. There's all sorts of diplomacy, right? These people need our resources. They need access to our markets, right? We can take a more mercantilist approach to trade and international diplomacy in order to put pressure on these countries to take back their diasporas and their citizens. These people who are, ethnically foreigners, they're immigrants, even if they've lost their citizenship. Countries like India, they don't even allow dual citizenship like Canada does. So many people that are here as citizens in Canada that are immigrants that have become citizens have to relinquish their Indian citizenship. Same with China, I believe. So to take away their citizenship would leave them stateless, as D46512 is indicating. Now we'll have to leverage all sorts of pressures and further, if we can form partnerships with other Western countries that are going through the same problems, countries like the United States, countries like the United Kingdom, that will further increase our leverage to put pressure on countries like India to take back their people that are no longer legitimate Canadian citizens. So there are solutions to that, but it will be a problem. Like this is going to take some complicated diplomatic situations. Okay. I'll star a couple questions, try and get to them at the end. Notice your Canadian says, Daniel Tyree, I love you, bro. I love you too. I love every one of you. I love my people, even the people that don't agree with me. Okay, so step 4, eliminate pull factors, introduce push factors. So as I was saying, pull factors, there are all these cultural and economic incentives for people to come here and to immigrate here. This could be, getting access to our education system, to our healthcare system. These are massive pull factors. They could be limited by, making it so that you can't have free access to our healthcare system for 5-10 years after you immigrate. Even if you've become a citizen, you don't get free access for a certain period of time. Stuff like this, which would make it less appealing to come to Canada. This is what I mean by eliminating pull factors. And we can also, and conversely, we can introduce push factors. So this would be things like making Canada just like less welcoming, to foreign cultures. Right now, our multiculturalist system, where we accept people coming from anywhere and everywhere, and we encourage them to maintain their foreign religions, their foreign cultures, their foreign dress, their foreign language. There's all sorts of funds that are given to support cultural festivals and stuff like this to make Canada a vibrant multicultural society, and whatever the progressives like to say. All of these can be reversed and act as kind of push factors. So to go through a couple of examples that we have here in this bundle of policies, we have introduce a national remittance tax. So right now, people that are here as temporary foreign workers, as citizens, as permanent residents, so on, they often are using Canada as basically a resource colony, an economic resource colony to extract wealth from the Canadian society and send it back to their families abroad, where it can go much further. Everyone knows this is happening, and it really undermines the economic logic behind immigration, right? These people are coming here, they are paid, and instead of spending money within the Canadian economy to give business service to Canadian companies, which then gets recycled into our economy, which benefits everyone, right? Which can increase wages and so on. No, money is being extracted from Canada and sent to foreign countries where it's spent there. This doesn't make any sense. This is not in Canada's interest. It's not in Canada's interest for an Indian to come here on a permanent residency and send money back to India to be spent there or saved there, or to promote to sustain their family in a foreign country. So we should introduce a remittance tax. So a tax on all money leaving the country. I think there's $4 billion a year in remittances just from Canada to India on an annual basis. That's insane. That is a significant portion of Canada's overall GDP being just sent out of our country. So we can tax this money, which will act as to discourage the practice of remittances, whilst funding the Canadian government to implement further remigration plans, right? A remittance tax is a very simple push factor. Canada is not to be used as a resource country for foreigners any longer. That's what we're thinking. A remittance tax, step 1. So step 2 in this, sub-step 2, abolish access to social services to all non-citizens, including healthcare, education, any economic assistance. So right now there's all sorts of social programs that are designated specifically towards non-citizens, things like the interim federal health program, the interim housing assistance program. These are programs specifically for non-citizen groups, things like asylum claimants, illegals, to access our social programs, which again just encourages these people to violate our laws, to come here on fraudulent asylum claims, to come here illegally, to enjoy our social programs, our healthcare system in particular. So these programs need to be completely abolished. We can't be supporting these people who, especially who are not citizens. Like, even they should be restricted for people who legally immigrate here for a period of time, 5, 10. I'm not exactly sure what that period should be, but you should have to pay into taxes for years before you get access to free healthcare. This isn't saying that people should die on the street if they're here. There could be exceptions for life-saving care, and they can still access our healthcare system. They would just have to pay for it. There's no reason that the Canadians that have lived here intergenerationally, that have been paying into the system, right? Like, I don't access healthcare very often. I've been to the hospital once, twice, maybe in my life, but my family has been paying into the system intergenerationally so that when I need, or my family needs, emergency care, we have access to it immediately. We shouldn't have to stay on wait lists because our healthcare system is so overburdened by non-citizens is inexcusable. So we need to radically restrict social programs. None of them should be going to any non-citizen group. Bar none. No, period. No pushback on that. So that's another pull factor that we need to be eliminating. A push factor here, another example of a push factor on a more cultural side, would be banning things like halal and kosher slaughter. So these are foreign cultural practices around the slaughtering of meat in specific religious ways that is really not in line with Canadian values. We do believe in, we love our animals. We love our animals. It's part of our kind of Anglo tradition or Western tradition that we believe that animals should have a level of welfare. So under kosher and halal slaughter, the animals are not stunned before they're killed. They're sliced at the neck and they slowly bleed out while alive, while they're blessed by some rabbi or preacher or whatnot. These are disgusting foreign practices that really have no place in Canada, and they've been massively expanded. They're subsidized by the government. You probably see there's a lot of cheaper meat products now in grocery stores are halal. So there's this massive demand for it. It's becoming increasingly popular. A lot of people are just choosing to buy halal slaughtered meat because it's the cheapest option available. And with food inflation the way that it is, it's the only option for many Canadians, creating this artificial demand. People don't even know what they're buying. I don't think they would morally agree with these things. These practices do not have a place in Canada. And if we banned things like halal slaughter, now that's another reason for these Muslim migrants who live here, these Jewish migrants who live here, if they can't access meat in line with their religious principles, this would be a massive push factor to encourage them to go back to their home countries, to a different country where they can access meat in line with their religious standards. So I think these are foreign practices that need to be banned. And again, this would introduce a sort of push factor to encourage people to go back to their own countries. There's a number of things that I think we could draw direct example from Quebec on. They've been doing this for a long time, even if it's just to protect their culture from Anglophone Canadians, right? So examples of this would be stricter language laws to enforce that only English and French should be used for public services in Canada. Right now, you can get things like a driver's license and all sorts of healthcare services and so on in a massive laundry list of foreign languages. This is not how we should be doing things in Canada. We should not be encouraging people to, we should be mandating that everyone in Canada speaks our official languages. This is a very basic thing, right? If we cannot communicate properly, we cannot have a functional society. And the Canadian state is doing the reverse. They're trying to make Canada more accommodating for people who can't speak our official languages. This is very backwards. Quebec has always been very strong about their language, right? The classic Bill 101 that restricted English language signage on businesses, requiring all public services to be done in French. We should expand these Quebec style laws to the rest of the country. If you can't speak English or French, I'm sorry, we're not accommodating that anymore. It doesn't make sense. It just creates this post-national, dysfunctional, multicultural society where people can't even communicate with each other. So again, this would be a massive push factor. There should not be areas, whole cities, where signage is in Mandarin and Hindi and all these foreign languages, that these whole areas, like especially like areas like Brampton, don't even feel like Canadian cities anymore. You can't get around. Like the main language in Brampton isn't even English or French anymore. It's a completely foreign language. If you're an actual heritage Canadian there, it's difficult. You'll to do business, to even read signs. This is unacceptable. So we should be adapting these Quebec laws on language for all public signage. All government services should only be delivered in English and French. If you can't deal with that, it's time to go back home. So this is another example of a push factor. Yes, Quebec has done it to not only protect the French language from foreigners, but to protect it from Anglophone Canadians as well. I can respect that, but I think we need to expand that to the rest of the country. If you can't speak English, if you can't speak French, it's time to go back to your home country. As well, I think we should adapt Quebec's bill, Bill 21. This is the very controversial one that has been going on the last few years. This is the ban on religious symbols in public service jobs. So right now in Quebec, you can't wear turbans or hijabs or burqas or any of these for religious symbols if you're employed by the public service. If you're a police officer, if you're in the if you're a teacher, if you work in the bureaucracy or whatnot, you can't wear these cultural religious symbols in these jobs. And this has been a massive point of controversy with the feds, between the federal and the Quebec government. They say it's unconstitutional. That's a violation of religious freedoms and so on. The Quebec government has used the notwithstanding clause, which is the part of our constitution that allows basically the government to violate the constitution and ignore the courts, the Supreme Courts, from striking down these laws. And I think we should adopt that for the rest of the country. Again, we have a cohesive central culture in Canada. We are a Christian secular nation, and we will not be putting up with these foreign religious symbols in public service. If you need to dress up in a ninja costume, you won't be teaching our kids. Like we're not promoting we're not normalizing these foreign cultures in Canada. We do things our way here. If you want to do that, that is your right. You just won't do it here in Canada. You'll have to go back to a Muslim country. There's tons of Muslim countries around the world where you can proudly wear your religious symbols. There's a country for Indians. There's countries for Muslims. If you want to live like that, I respect it, but you won't be doing it in Canada. So all of these kind of examples of push factors. The last one, I think we should completely ban dual citizenship, like we see in many other foreign countries. You have to choose Canada or your home country. If you prefer them, you can go back. That's none of my business. But just another push factor, and specifically, we shouldn't be allowing dual citizens to serve in any sort of, or immigrants to be able to serve in any sort of public service jobs, especially national security, any elected office at any level. This should be for Canadians only. If you're born in Canada, you're a Canadian citizen, you can hold office. But if you're an immigrant, if you're a dual citizen, you can't serve in these jobs. We need to have. There's so many MPs at the federal level that are dual citizens, and they have these dual loyalties. Just look at, for example, our immigration minister, Lena Diab. She's a Lebanese Canadian or whatever, born in Canada, lived in Lebanon, back in Canada. She's very concerned about the Lebanese diaspora here, about what's going on in Lebanon. like these people have natural instincts towards their ethnic diaspora, their people, and I can understand that and I respect that. I feel the same way about my people, but we can't have you serving in the most important offices in Canada unless you are loyal to the Canadian people and the Canadian people only. Another example of this was our former defense minister, Harjit Sajjan, who got in a massive scandal for during an international conflict. He prioritized protecting not even Canadian Sikhs abroad, and risked Canadian lives in order to conduct a full scale operation to protect their interests. Like, it's very clear that a lot of these parliamentarians maintain loyalty to their home countries, even if they were born here in Canada. They have an intrinsic loyalty to their foreign countries and their people. And again, I understand that, I respect that, but we can't have it in our government. So that's a kind of explanation. That's our kind of step 4, the last step in phase 1. Eliminate the pull factors, introduce these push factors, stand up for Canadian culture and identity, put ourselves first, stop accommodating all these foreign religions, all these foreign loyalties, all these foreign cultural practices. We're not doing that anymore. We know who we are as Canadians, and we're standing up for that. We need to reimpose our culture on our society. So that's the end of phase 1. I'll quickly look, see if we have any questions going on here. But that is the rundown. I was going to say the quick rundown of phase 1. We're an hour in already. How's it going, chat? A good time to remind people to follow, to subscribe, to retweet, to comment, to like, whatever social media platform you're on. Help promote the stream, help get more eyeballs on this, help stretch our message even further. Okay. Everything's looking good. Everything's looking good. Okay, we're gonna move on to phase 2 here. We're gonna move on to phase 2. Looks good. Okay, so phase 2 is remove non-citizens and incentivize voluntary return. So this is when we start to actually remigrate people. The first step is all about closing the doors and making it less comfortable to encourage people to kind of self-deport and start leaving on their own vocation, not being, involuntarily sent back, not having people, show up at the door and make sure they're leaving the country. That's all for later. The first step is to shut the door and encourage to stop the temporary crisis, to end birthright citizenship, to institute these new push factors, to start encouraging people to leave if they don't want to be part of Canadian culture, Canadian society. Big man Dan does not want to read our chats. Guys, I'm trying to run a whole stream myself. Come on. I'll get to the questions. This is your first stream? Is this your first stream? It's me ranting. I answer a bunch of questions. I rant some more. Finito. Right now I'm in the ranting. I'm trying my best to keep an eye on chat, but I'm trying to deliver a good message to you all. If you have a question, I'm happy to answer it. But I am trying to keep an eye on the chat, guys. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat, but deliver you guys a fun and informative show. That's what we're all about here. Okay. So phase 2, the first step is all about reforming the asylum system. So if you're a regular watcher, you're going to know I've talked about this a lot before. The asylum system is one of the most abused and inexcusable part of the modern immigration system. We need massive reform for the asylum system. This is something that has gone completely off the rails since 2015 in particular. We used to have very small numbers, in the thousands, tens of thousands. Now there's hundreds of thousands of claims a year. It all started back in 2016 under Justin Trudeau. You'll remember Trump came into power and he started to have a much stronger position against immigration. There was things like the Muslim immigration ban. They were cracking down on illegal migrants and all these things. And Trudeau put out the tweet, this big virtue signal that the world was welcome in Canada, that we were so virtuous and welcoming to the world's immigrants. Come to Canada. And as a result, we've seen an absolute explosion of the asylum system since 2015. It's basically become a kind of backdoor immigration channel. Instead of coming here through the official pathways to get permanent residency and so on, or even as a temporary foreign worker, any sort of official visa status, now you can just show up in Canada, claim that you're an asylum claimant, right? You're a refugee. You're being persecuted in your home country for all sorts of things that cannot be easily proven. There's all sorts of. You can follow one of my favorite journalists in Canada, Jamie Sarkanak. She does a great job of documenting specific examples of how these programs are being abused. But things like men showing up in Canada from countries like Nigeria, which don't have strong LGBTQ rights, saying that they're homosexual. How is a government official supposed to prove this? Kiss a man right now. Watch this gay porn. How are you supposed to prove this? And they sit in the backlog system. They say they can't go back because they're homosexual. All of a sudden, they marry someone. They have a child here. Oh, and never mind about that. Now I can get citizenship through another alternative way. So there's all these. Like when people think of asylum, they think of people fleeing war. They think of, dissident journalists being persecuted by the state. That's not the case anymore. Now it's just anyone who shows up, all the people that were crossing Roxham Road for years before that was shut down in the Safe Third Country Agreement was restricted. People just showing up on tourist visas, or more recently, people that are already here on temporary foreign worker visas, international mobility program visas, foreign student visas, all these sorts of things. When their time's up, now they're saying, no, I can't go back. I need asylum. I need refugee status. And as a result, they sit in this backlog system. It takes years for the government to process them. There's hundreds of thousands, 300, 400,000 in this backlog system, unresolved claims. And all the while they get access to the international mobility they get access to the interim federal health program. They get access to the interim housing assistance program. They get access to all these sort of social programs while they wait in the backlog system. If they drop a child, as we were talking about earlier, they're more likely to get citizenship. They can get access to the Canada Child Benefit. This asylum system, it's just become a backdoor immigration alternative. And these people don't even have the human capital we need, right? Like if you're coming through the official channels, ostensibly you're filling some sort of labor market. You're coming as a permanent resident because you have a job secured. You're coming as a temporary migrant, whatnot. I've already criticized that program, but at least these people are coming with jobs in mind. The people that are coming as asylum claimants, they're again just directly competing with Canadians for jobs. They're not filling a gap in the market. They're just driving down wages. They're taking jobs away from our own people. They're taking all sorts of social assistance. It was found there was like the interim federal health program has ballooned to $1 billion a year for non-citizens. $1 billion in healthcare being spent on fake asylums, illegals, so on, while Canadians struggle to get a family doctor, while they wait on wait lists for critical surgeries. This is just not acceptable. So we need to completely rethink how we do asylum refugee systems here in Canada. Because really it shouldn't even be it should very much be a temporary thing. Even if people are legitimate refugees fleeing war and so on, these people come here and they get on a pathway to permanent residency. Like, why? Like once peace is restored in their country, they should be going back to help rebuild their society. They shouldn't just get to live here forever just because they lived in a war-torn country. That doesn't make any sense. So beyond just the general abuse, we need to completely rethink how we do the asylum system here in Canada, because even just coming to live in Canada is too much of an incentive within itself. To live in our stable, beautiful society, our beautiful landscapes, there's so much reason to try and live here. Not even to consider using Canada as a kind of jumping off point to get to countries like the United States, which is also very common. So I this will be a part of our upcoming our first white paper I've talked about many times on this live stream. We're working on a series of white papers that'll expand on every single policy that I'm discussing today in a very professional format that can be provided directly to governments, directly to political parties, to try and influence and give them direction on immigration related matters. The first one that we're nearing completion of is on the asylum system, exposing all the problems, all the fraud that's going on within the system, but then also offering our own solutions. So I'll give you an idea of what we're proposing. But it's also important to understand how dysfunctional the system is from a bureaucratic standpoint, because right now we see a very high approval rate for asylum claims, which kind of justifies the system. It's like, oh, these people aren't fake asylum claimants. All of their, 60, 70% of them are getting approved. But if you look, there's been whistleblowers, and if you look at the process, bureaucrats have a massive incentive to just kind of rubber stamp these claims, because it's more work literally to reject a claim than it is to approve one. If you're just approving one, it's yep, approved, move on, approved, move on. If you're rejecting one, you have to write long reports explaining why you're rejecting them, which can cause workers to require overtime. If you do have a rejection and it's contested in through the IRB, the Immigration Refugee Board, then the bureaucrat working here in Ottawa will get hauled in to try to have to explain why they rejected them. Like, this is just extra work and extra risk for people working in the bureaucracy as well. Whistleblowers have suggested that people with too high a rejection rate will be overlooked for advancement within the bureaucracy, for promotions and raises and so forth. So there's just this massive incentive for people working within the system to just rubber stamp all of these approvals and just let these people get permanent status based on these tenuous or even fraudulent claims. So we need to completely rethink how we're doing this in Canada. The system doesn't work. It's well documented. It doesn't work. The numbers have radically increased since 2015. People are just abusing the system. The bureaucracy cannot handle the numbers and are as a result doing things half-assed, which is creating all these further problems within our society. What I'm suggesting is we adapt something that the Conservative government in the United Kingdom was doing, which was called the Rwanda Plan. So they were working with Rwanda as sort of a safe third country to establish asylum camps, refugee camps in Rwanda, which would house these asylum claimants. Instead of allowing them to stay in the United Kingdom, they would stay in this kind of processing facility where they could get basic, healthcare, where they could get basic housing, and live temporarily, especially if they're actually fleeing legitimate crises. But ultimately, the goal is to have them go back to their home countries when it is safe to do so. So I think this is something that we could adapt for Canada's purposes, and again, kind of work collaboratively with other similar countries that are facing similar crises, countries like the United States, like the United Kingdom, all sorts of Western countries in Europe. We can get together to make these facilities in maybe a single country, maybe a few in different regions, one in the Middle East, one in Africa, one in Asia, something like that, so that people that are legitimately fleeing crises, because like at the end of the day, Canadians are a generous people. Like, we do want to have a level of peace. We don't want to see people unnecessarily suffering, but we can't be encouraging people to come here to try and take advantage of all of our social systems. So if we can collaborate, economically speaking, with countries like the United States and as I listed off, to establish these asylum camps in foreign countries, then people that are legitimately fleeing tyrannical governments, war, whatnot, have a safe place to go, but they're not just trying to game the system to come here to get citizenship and to take advantage of our social programs and to have a kid to try and get permanent residency and all these things. So we need to take that out of the equation entirely. If you're fleeing, if you need legitimate asylum, like, Canada will help make sure that you are safe, but it's not going to happen in our country. So that's the big reform to the asylum system. Again, this is something I think we need to be retroactively working on, right? We need to cut off the asylum system where it is. We're not doing that anymore. Everyone in the system is going back to their home countries or is being sent to one of these foreign asylum camps to get themselves sorted. But also we need to be going back and re-auditing anyone who received citizenship, anyone who received permanent residency through the asylum system, especially over the last 10 years, since 2015, since Justin Trudeau started advertising and since this abuse went off the rails. And we need to be auditing these citizenships and revoking them in cases where it's deemed that the asylum claim was fraudulent. Again, just like with birthright citizenship, it's not enough to just fix the problem moving forward. We need to set a new standard, and we need to go back and make sure we weed out all the fraud that doesn't meet this new standard. So that's the first point 5, step 5, phase 2. Reformat the asylum system, stop the abuse, totally reimagine the system. It's not happening in Canada anymore. If people are fleeing war, they should have a safe place to go, but it's not going to be here in our cities and towns. This has also had all sorts of, like, there's all sorts of migrant hotels here in Ottawa, here in Niagara, and this causes all sorts of downstream issues, increased crime. They take over entire hotels. This has all sorts of downstream effects on these societies. We're not doing this anymore. Something like 60% of the homeless in Ottawa, 40% of the homeless people in Toronto, 50% of the homeless people in Toronto are people on asylum claims. Like, this isn't, and then they end up doing drugs and having all these other downstream effects on Canadian society, making our country less safe, less comfortable, less hospitable, less communal for our own people. It's not working for us. It's not working for the asylum claimants either. This is not a mutually beneficial thing. It's not working for anyone. So this is a massive issue area. I think you can get massive public support behind an issue like this. The CPC has been putting pressure on the Liberal government on this topic, but again, it's very soft. They want things like more in-person interviews for people going through asylum claims, but that's not enough. Like, we need a complete reimagining of the system to weed out this abuse and the adverse impacts of this program. They need to be sent back home. Hundreds of thousands of people in the system now, hundreds more thousands of people over the last 10 years. Citizenship needs to be revoked. Permanent residency needs to be revoked. And a full-scale audit needs to be occurred, and these people need to be sent back. Okay. Step 6. I need a drink. This is a long one, guys. Revocation of permanent residency. Scared the dog. So permanent residency is a kind of status between some of these temporary visas or people that come here before they become full-on citizens. And permanent residents are afforded most of the same rights as citizens. They're not full citizens, though. They're allowed. They're not allowed to vote in elections, for example. That's only allowed to citizens. So it's this kind of interim position between being a citizen and being a a non-citizen. It's this kind of gray area. And as such, they're not afforded the same rights as citizens. So I think this is a massive way that we can start to reverse the demographic transformation of Canada. We need to annul all active permanent residencies right now. Everyone's going to become temporary again. And we need to do a full-scale audit of these previously permanent residents. Some of them can be afforded citizenship and be allowed to stay. These people that are integrating into our society, that are providing value to our economy, that are integrating well into our society, they can be encouraged to become citizens. Others will be, will have their permanent residency completely revoked, and they'll be encouraged or forced to leave the country. So this is a very simple way that I think we can en masse send back people without a massive constitutional crisis, without a big pushback in the courts and so forth. The permanent residency just needs to be revoked. It's hard to get good numbers on how many permanent residents are currently in Canada. How many people are just immigrants sitting on permanent residency, not becoming citizens for whatever reason. A big motivation behind these things is, as I mentioned, there are certain countries around the world, like India, that doesn't allow for dual citizenship. So there's lots of people who sit here on permanent residence, working here, sending remissions back to their home country, but they don't want to become a citizen because they have to lose their citizenship from their home country, and that they're more loyal to their home country. They go back to their home country regularly. They want to be able to vote in elections and so on. So they choose to live in Canada but not become a citizen because they don't want to lose their foreign citizenship. So all these people that are sitting on permanent residency not becoming citizens, I think that is very suspect. And this would be a way to quickly reverse much of the demographic transformation that's happened over recent years. So a lot of these recent immigrants that have come here that are sitting on permanent residency, they haven't become citizens yet. I think we need to annul all of these active permanent residencies, re-audit, offer some of them citizenships. I'm sure some of them are good, integrating into our society, providing value. Some of them could stay. Many of them will have to go home. So that's step 6. Very simple. Annul permanent residencies, re-audit, send people back. And then here's the big one, step 7. For the guys, I'm just going through point by point. I'm reading it out to you. I'm doing it all off the dome, but I'm going through this plan. You can find it all here. You can look by step. There's little, I try and make it easy for you guys. I try and make it easy to understand, easy to read. People are like, oh, it's a big wall of text. Guys, this is the hub of everything. You think this is a wall of text? Just wait until we start putting out these white papers. We're going to have big 40, 50, 100-page reports explaining this, not just in point form like I have on the website, but in massive detail. So we're here on step 7, mass deportation. So I've broken down the different groups and the kind of numbers that we can expect, how it would affect things. So I'll explain it to you. Can you talk about it? Okay, so mass deportation. So what are deportations? People ask, remigration, deportations, what's the difference? Deportations, technically speaking, is the involuntary removal of people here illegally. Remigration is a broader umbrella term that covers all. It's literally just the polar opposite of immigration, right? Immigration is people coming to a country. Remigration is them going back to their country. So remigration is a wide umbrella term that includes all these things, all these pull factors, push factors, birthright, citizenship, all these different migration-related policies. This all falls under remigration. Deportation is just the forced removal of certain classes of civilians. So specifically, we're talking about mass deportations. So we need to remove, first, all temporary foreign workers. As we talked about earlier, everyone in the International Mobility Program, everyone in the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, these will be shut down. Many of them will leave voluntarily, right? They no longer have legitimate status here. They don't have a legitimate SIN number. They can't get paid through proper channels. Most of them will just go back to their own country. Most people are, law-abiding folks, but the ones that don't leave, the ones that choose to try and work under the table, and so on, stay here for whatever reason, we need to make sure these people are removed. So between the international mobility program, and the temporary foreign worker program, there's about 1 million people, a bit over 1 to 2 million people here on those kind of visas. Many of them will leave, but we have to make sure they all leave. So the first group, temporary foreign workers, they're getting deported. If they don't leave, we're making sure they leave. As well, to preface this will require a massive expansion of CBSA, the Canadian Border Service Agency, or a establishment of entirely new deportation service. Like, we don't have an equivalent to ICE here in Canada like they do in the United States. We don't have agents that can enforce our laws and make sure people are removed from the country. The Liberal government has said, under both Trudeau and under Mark Carney, that they rely on self-deportations. They don't track these things. They don't force deportation. So we'll need to have a massive expansion of the CBSA, or a whole new remigration agency, the Royal Canadian Remigration Forces, to make sure that these people are removed from our system, our society entirely. So big new investment. We'll be cutting things like foreign aid. We'll be imposing a new remittance tax. There'll be more money coming into the system. It's going to be allocated to these remigration services. So temporary foreign workers, international mobility program, they need to go. Again, this will be about enforcing a lot of the steps that we talked about earlier. So anyone who had their citizenship revoked as a result of the birthright citizenship changes, these people will need to be removed. Again, lots of people will leave voluntarily. The ones that don't, we need to make sure leave. It's hard to get good estimates on this. It's hard to get good estimates on how many people have come through this system. This will require a full-scale audit, but this is hundreds of thousands of people that need to be removed from the system. I have a vague estimate at 175 to 250,000. That's probably very, very low. It's probably closer to, it's probably up in the millions more accurately. So again, these people need to be removed. The next group is the one that we just talked about, permanent residents. These people, all the permanent residents that have been annulled, the ones that don't pass our new standards, that aren't offered citizenship, they need to be encouraged to leave. The ones that don't leave voluntarily need to be deported. So again, hard to get good estimates on this, how many people are sitting on permanent residency right now, but we're talking about, again, in the millions, probably 2 to 5 million people, somewhere in that broad range. The ones that don't meet the new standards need to go. Asylum claimants, these are the people, there's 300,000 to 400,000 currently in the system. Everyone's going to go. And not to mention retroactively imposing these things. So again, we're talking about 600,000, 700, up to 1 million people removed from the system. We're taking away citizenship that was given under misguided governments of days past. We're taking people out of the system. Again, removed. Illegal immigrants. There are estimates that there are between 20,000 to 500,000 illegal immigrants here in Canada. I think the true numbers are much higher. It's probably, again, upwards of 1 million. These people need to be completely weeded out of our society. They're illegals. They have no status. We're not talking about changing any laws. We're just talking about enforcing the laws on the books. Millions of people have come here, either overstaying on visas, temporary visas, foreign students, temporary foreign workers, so on. People that illegally cross the border, are overstaying on tourist visas. People who illegally cross the border at Roxham Road and all sorts of other border crossings. Anyone who's come here illegally needs to be weeded out and removed. This is the most clear case for deportations that there is on there. And yeah, exactly. The last one is anyone on temporary visas that are expiring. There's an estimated 2.1 million expiring visas throughout 2026, again, many of these people do leave, right? Most people are law abiding folks. Their visas end, they go home, but we need to have the personnel in place to monitor and enforce our laws, make sure people are removed. So that comes out to roughly 5 to 9 million deportations, depending on how many people leave voluntarily, that need to be carried out. I think that could be accomplished over the course of about 2 to 10 years. It's not going to be easy. It's going to have effects on our society. We saw we we saw exactly how difficult this is in the United States, right? Trump got elected on a massive mandate for mass deportations, and then he starts trying to go through with them, and he receives pushback. We saw the drama in Minnesota and I forget the other state, where there's clashes between protesters and ICE agents trying to do their job and enforce their laws, where it ends in violent clashes and American citizens being killed by ICE agents. So this is like, nothing is going to be easy here. The news is not going to be on our side. They're going to be trying to make sob stories, just like we see like the deportation of Sidhu, the guy that did the Humboldt bus crash. We have the CBC making full scale sob stories on him. We have, former premiers writing op-eds on why he should be allowed to stay. Like there's going to be a big pushback against these things. This is why we need to be metapolitically organized to show our support for causes like this. I think this is a great example of metapolitics in action. Trump wins as the political figure on a platform of mass deportations, but when he goes forward with his plan, he faces metapolitical backlash from protesters, from left-wing agitators, and there is not the same metapolitical support for him on the right. So if we just go back and follow that example of what happened in Minnesota when that woman was killed, there's massive forces that push back against the ICE agents, and then the news, the mainstream media comes in and they're like, oh, look how unpopular Trump is, look how unpopular deportations are, everyone's against this, oh my god, ICE just killed someone, they're evil. But if there was a metapolitical force like the Dominion Society that was able to mobilize and support the ICE agents, to show up with well, I mean, in Canada it would be Red Ensigns. In America, it would be the Stars and Stripes. These patriotic movements being like, we love ICE, there to give them food and water and to push back protesters, to counter protest and act as a barrier. All of a sudden, CNN and whatever, the mainstream news, they can't get their perfect shot where they're like, oh, look how unpopular Trump is. No, now all of a sudden it's complicated. There's even bigger mass protests in favor, or counter protests in favor of the deportations. All of a sudden the news is not so slanted, and ICE is actually able to do their jobs. There needs to be metapolitical pressure and a political agent in order to accomplish this fully. As we've seen in the United States, just a political force is not enough. We need a metapolitical complement to actually make sure this happens smoothly and effectively. So that's step 7, mass deportations. Millions have come and millions must go. That's the reality of the situation. We've broken it down exactly who these millions are, the different groups: temporary foreign workers, revoked citizens from birthright citizenship, revoked permanent residents, illegal migrants, expiring temporary visas, fraudulent asylum claimants. These are the millions that need to be removed from our country, even if it requires involuntary removal. This is a big episode, guys. It's a big episode. My voice is getting tired. Can you hear it? Sound offs in the chat. We got Dom Sock Can 02155 in Calgary. Where are you guys at? We got a Calgary listening in. Who else? Who else do we have? Can we get some sound offs in the chat? Oh. We got Ottawa. We love to see it. Sudbury, Winnipeg, Calgary again. Give this can of white monster. It's too late. I'm old. I can't be doing caffeine at this time of day, guys. I'm old. I'm old. We got the sparkling water to keep my voice fresh. We got another in Ottawa, Brantford, Saskatoon, Bath. Is he taking a bath or is he in Bath, Ontario? We'll never know. Montreal, the region of Waterloo. I lived in Waterloo for a while. I got my degree there. Pakistan. What the heck? I hope that's a joke. Salmon Arm, BC. St. John, New Brunswick. Woodstock, Ontario. Saanich, Kitchener, Edmonton, Toronto, Quebec. We got people across the country. Imperial in Montreal. I know you. I know you. Fredericton, JB Morrison. Oh, we're going to talk. We're going to talk on Friday. Vancouver, BC. Nova Scotia, Regina. Wow, we got a real full team here. St. Catharines. I love my St. Catharines boys. Max Janest, what are you doing in Punjab? What are you doing? Shout out Coburg. Nice, nice. Max Janest, he's our agent on the inside in India. He must be doing some hard journalism. We'll pray for Max's safety. Wasn't Waterloo, Berlin, the old days. Florida, we have Max Bernier calling in from Florida. Northeast of Calgary, stay safe, stay safe. He's in Little Punjab. Max is doing good work. We love Max. We love Max. I think he means Brampton. It's easy to get confused nowadays. Okay. That was fun. It was good to see where. Thanks for sharing where you're tuning in from, guys. It's good to see. I love. We've got a nice cross Canada movement, right? It's not all guys here in Ontario like me. It's people across the country. Okay, let's round out phase 2. This is a long one, guys, and I still have a special rant for the end too. Okay, phase 8 or phase 2, step 8. We have what we call a voluntary repatriation program. So repatriation, this is another word that gets tangled up. Deportation, repatriation, remigration. So I use repatriation specifically for this aspect of our remigration plan. Our voluntary repatriation program would look like financial assistance, logistical assistance in order to encourage specifically citizens to revoke their citizenship, to give up their citizenship rather. In return, they'd receive, a lump sum or logistical support. This is something that could scale up over time. So as we introduce all these push factors, all these eliminate all these pull factors, as Canada is becoming less culturally welcoming, less multicultural, people will want to leave. We want to stimulate people, especially people that are on citizenship, to leave voluntarily, right? Then we're not getting into these constitutional problems. We're not fighting with courts. People are leaving. We're giving them a lump sum to do so. These people are often burdens in our society, right? They might pay taxes, they might make money, but they're actually a drain on the system with the social support that they're taking on, not to mention the cultural implications, but just access to our healthcare system, our education system, all of our social supports. They're actually a net negative on our society, especially over their lifetime. So the idea is to offer a lump sum payment, and this could scale up over time. It could start out with just logistical support where we give them a plane ticket, right? We saw Trump do that. He'd offered free plane tickets for people that wanted to give up their citizenship and go home. So that's how it starts. We'll help you move back. We'll give you free travel, whatever. You don't want to live here anymore because you don't speak English well enough and we're not being accommodating, because you want your halal meat, because you want to wear your hijab, your niqab, whatever, your turban. You want to leave now? Okay, we'll give you a free travel. We'll help you leave. We'll give you a lump sum payment. It could start at $10,000. It could scale up. It could be based on the size of your family, whatnot. We've seen this implemented in countries like Sweden and Denmark, offering these financial incentives in order to encourage people to return to their home countries or return to another country where they'll be more comfortable. So this is a very simple one. You get to renounce your citizenship. You get some benefits, a free plane ticket, a free a lump sum payment in order to give up your citizenship and return home. So this is the first stage. So we've already talked about removing all of the less legitimate people, right? These people on fraudulent birthright citizenship, on temporary foreign workers, illegals, all these different classes. We've talked about removing them, changing the laws to make them leave. Now we're talking about citizenship. So the first step is just the voluntary option. Okay, you'll take a payment, you'll give up your citizenship, and you'll leave. We're making Canada less comfortable for you. You want to leave? Let's make that happen. So very simple to round out phase 2, the voluntary repatriation system. People don't like this. They just want everyone to be forced out. But the reality is we need to offer a staged approach as we build public support for removing people from the country. As people get more used to these concepts, revoking these various statuses, as people see people voluntarily leaving, public support will continue to climb for the concept of remigration writ large, and this is just another step towards that. So this voluntary system could be added very early in the process, right? It might be too low in this list, to be honest. I kind of grouped these things thematically, but this could be, offered day one of a new government. As we're implementing phase 1, we can also add a voluntary system, especially with a very basic kind of financial incentives, or just like the free plane tickets, so on, like I was describing off the bat. So very simple, the voluntary repatriation program. Here's some money, here's some logistical support. You're not a citizen anymore. Time to go home. So very simple, very effective. So that is phase 2. There we go, guys. Phase 1, phase 2. Now we just have phase 3. Phase 3. So phase 3 is rebuilding a cohesive and sovereign country. This is cleaning up the rest of the mess now that people are leaving. Okay. Anything going on in the chat before we move on to phase 3? I love these kind words from Roy Joseph Jr. Indeed, we wish you a wonderful move to Kingston. May your new life be amazing. Lovely. I'm not going to be able to talk by the end of this, guys. Okay. Oh, it looks like super chats are working. Who lied to me? Cox 798, $2. Go get it, boys. Minus 30% if you super chat, by the way. An important reminder, if you want to give financial support, don't do what Cox did. We appreciate every dollar, Cox. It helps a lot. But if you really want to help gas the movement, the best thing to do is go over to our website, dominionsociety.ca. Drop us a small donation if you can afford it. If you can afford a $100 one, you get one of these gorgeous ensign pins. If not, you can become a member. You can sign up as a member of the Dominion Society. I'll get you one of these beautiful Dominion Society pins so you can rep the movement on your jacket, on your outside coat, whatever. $25 a year. But more importantly, that's how you get involved in an organization. That's how you get plugged in with your local team at the local level. We have teams going across the country. We have teams in Winnipeg, in Regina, in Victoria, in Calgary, Edmonton, St. Catharines, Niagara, Hamilton. We have Nova Scotia, Halifax. We have teams all over the country, and we're expanding more and more every week. So if you want to be put in touch with like-minded Dominion Society members, the first step is to head over to our website, become a member, and start to get involved. We're doing all sorts of interesting community events, more and more, local meetups on a regular basis, community cleanups, postering, literature distribution, all sorts of things to not only give you guys a sense of community and involvement, but also to promote our message further and further, to popularize remigration and put more pressure on institutions and government and create that meta political force to shift the direction of Canadian politics. Dom sock tank tops. Yeah, we're working on we'll be releasing a new line of merch very soon. And then we'll be doing a new summer line after that. We have a new line of t-shirts and hoodies and hats and stuff coming. Some new Long Live Canada merch for our super fans. Some new colors, stuff like that. And then we'll be looking to do some more summery merch after that. Dom sock gym shirts. Yeah. We're looking to do some gym shorts, some gym shirts. We need to get that white boy summer aesthetic maxing out. Loved the community cleanups, dude. Yeah, that is something that's so important. As multiculturalism has brought so much chaos into our society, but you can see the erosion of communities at the very basic level, right? Our communities have just become disgusting. There's garbage everywhere. There's needles, crack pipes. If you live in a city, everywhere you go, it's like this. Like I wake up sometimes and I have needles and crack pipes and stuff in my front yard. It's disgusting. So we need to be leading by example, right? Cleaning up our community. We're not just all talk. We want a better country and we're willing to do the work. So yeah, the community cleanups is a great thing that I'm so proud to see from our team. Some guys started it here in Ontario, and then guys across the country are like trying to one up each other. We have this sense of kind of friendly competition going on across the organization, and it's improving our country in a very tangible way. It's beautiful to see. We do have lots of people in Sudbury, Lees. We haven't got the organization quite online yet, but it's on the radar. It's on the radar. Can we say white man instead of white boy? I don't know, man. Like I understand. Like I'm a man. I'm not a boy. I'm almost 30 years old. But there is a certain vibe to white boy summer. Like it's not. You don't have to be so. It doesn't have to be so demeaning or anything. It's just for the vibes, man. It's for the vibes. Low key summer, a sense of childlike wonderment. Like embrace it. It doesn't have to be so demeaning. We're taking it back, boys. White boy summer. Okay, let's get back into things. Last phase 3, rebuild a cohesive and sovereign nation. Step 9, adjust and expand rules for revoking naturalized citizenship. So this is the big one. This is the big controversial one that makes Jason Kenney all upset because I'm an evil racist and I want to take away people's citizenship. Yada, yada, yada. So this is what I mean when we're talking about expanding rules for revoking naturalized citizenship. So we want to amend the Citizenship Act to restore and expand the federal government's authority to revoke naturalized citizenship on the basis of national interest, loyalty, and cultural compatibility, not solely on fraud. So right now, you can revoke citizenships within the Canadian Constitution, within the Citizenship Act. Right now, you can only revoke citizenship in cases of fraud. Before Justin Trudeau, you could also revoke citizenship in cases of terrorism. This is where Trudeau's famous line, "A Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian," actually came from. It was on the debate stage against Stephen Harper around the topic of Omar Khadr, who you might remember. He fought on behalf of, what was it, ISIS or some Muslim extremist group, but was born here in Canada, went to go fight abroad because his parents were involved. Back towards the 2015 election, Justin Trudeau made this big virtue signaling: a Canadian, even if they're a terrorist. That's what he was saying. So under Stephen Harper, you could revoke citizenship for terrorism. You can still revoke citizenship in terms of fraud. So I think a new government should expand these rules. First of all, they should clarify how fraud is interpreted in order to revoke citizenship. This would include things that we've already discussed. So a more liberal interpretation of fraud would include things like people who got citizenship through birthrights, through gaming birthright citizenship, through anchor babies, through birth tourism. This is a knowing act of fraud in an effort to get citizenship, and it should be interpreted as such when revoking citizenship. So this would be a simple act of parliament, a clarification for the bureaucracy on how fraud is interpreted to cast that wider net in order to start revoking more citizenships. Now, I believe that we should further add new reasons for which citizenship should be revoked, specifically if it's in the national interest and to enforce loyalty and cultural compatibility. So to protect Canada's social cohesion and national security. So right now there are all sorts of foreign controversies, right? There's foreign gangs operating in Canada. Like the Trudeau accused the Indian government of executing an extrajudicial execution on Canadian territory when a Sikh activist was killed a few years back. There are the Chinese police stations enforcing foreign laws within Canadian territory. There are things like the Bishnoi gang, an Indian gang that was just added to the terrorist list. There's all sorts of other foreign gangs as well. I don't care if these people that are part of these groups are citizens, right? They're undermining Canada's national sovereignty, our national security, and they should have their citizenship revoked in order to protect those things. Then they should be removed from the country, right? This is very basic. But also things like public allegiance to foreign states and ideologies. Right now, the largest political demonstrations in Canada are all about foreign causes, right? It's these massive protests and referendums for an independent Khalistani state. It's these clashes between, Iranians, Muslims, and Jews. It's all these foreign groups, all this foreign politics playing out on Canadian soil. If you're more loyal to a foreign state, a foreign political movement, a foreign military, so on, and you're not loyal to Canada, I think this is grounds for removal. I think Canadian citizens should be loyal to Canada first, Canada only. And if you're out protesting, if you're out advocating, if you're using Canada as a safe haven to advance your foreign political causes, as so many Sikhs are in Canada, as so many Khalistani radicals are in Canada, just using Canada as a safe haven to advance their foreign political interests, we're not putting up with that anymore. If you're in Canada, you're loyal to Canada and Canada only. If you're interested in advancing a foreign cause, you can go do that back in your foreign country. So this is what I mean. It's these subversive agents acting against Canadian interests, acting on behalf of foreign governments, acting in favor of foreign political causes. These people do not have a place in Canadian society. And as well, we should be any criminals. We should much more liberally revoke citizenship and deport immigrants who are criminals, especially in terms of serious crimes. Like if these people are murdering and raping people, there's no more clear indication that you do not belong in Canadian society than coming here and breaking our laws. So there needs to be a zero tolerance for these things. If you're committing, especially if you're on any sort of temporary visa, temporary foreign worker, so on, if you're violating our laws, zero tolerance, you're out. As well, this should be grounds to remove, especially in the case of serious crimes. If you're breaking all our laws, you've made it very clear that you do not belong here. We're not wasting time. We're not wasting resources putting you in prison. We're sending you back to your own country. So this is what I mean when we're talking about revoking naturalized citizenship. It's these people who have gamed our system, that have abused birthright citizenship, that have abused the asylum system. These people that are acting on behalf of foreign governments, that are compromising our national security, and these subversives that are using Canada as a safe haven for their own foreign political interests. All these people, I don't care if they're citizens, I don't care what their class is, and criminals. They've proven that they do not belong in Canadian society. They do not meet the threshold for what we believe a Canadian citizenship should Canadian citizens should be, and they need to be removed. So that's the simple, the long and short of it. This would require constitutional changes, right? We'd need to change the Citizenship Act. We'd likely get pushback in the Supreme Courts. We've seen that the Supreme Courts think it's discrimination to not even to not offer free daycare services to fake asylum claimants, right? The Supreme Courts will push back on that. They'll most certainly push back on things like revoking citizenship. Fortunately, in Canada, we have the notwithstanding clause, the peace, order, and good governance clause. We have these constitutional tools to ignore the subversive actions of the courts. But ultimately, we'll have to take a page out of countries like El Salvador. If judges are working against Canada's national interests, they need to be impeached, they need to be removed, and they need to be replaced with actual nationalists, actual patriots, judges that are going to put the interests of the Canadian people first. While we're amending the Constitution, I also think we should take a page out of Hungary's book. The first clause in the Canadian Constitution should recognize that Canada is a bicultural country. It should recognize Canadian heritage Canadians. It should recognize that the Canadian people are paramount, that the purpose of the state is to serve the nation, and everything else should flow from there. That constitutional amendment would be, not to mention removing the multiculturalism portion from the charter as well. That first constitutional amendment to recognize heritage Canadians, to recognize Canada as a home for Canadians, would have incredible downstream impacts on the interpretation of all sorts of laws. So I think that's a necessary reinterpretation, a necessary change to the Constitution that will enable all sorts of other changes that I've already talked about today, but especially when it comes to revoking citizenship. So that's probably the most important piece, the most controversial piece, revoking citizenship. But I think it is very reasonable. We have very specific ideas. It's not just anyone who's not white enough gets deported. Like we have very specific, tangible ideas of who does not meet the cut of what a Canadian citizen should be, and the laws that should be changed in order to adhere to this new concept of what it means to be Canadian. So that's the big one. Step 9, phase 3. Just a few more quick hits. Step 10, we have penalized institutions that enabled mass migration. So I don't think it's enough to just change the laws, right? We need to be punishing our enemies as well. So all these sort of immigration consultants, immigration lawyers, this whole industry around grifting off of Canada's lax immigration laws, these people need to be put out of business. They need to be punished. They need to be put in jail. They need to be all these NGOs that are facilitating and promoting migration to Canada, these fake colleges that are just diploma mills to further facilitate chain migration, any businesses, these chain restaurants that are just being used as hubs to bring in more temporary foreign workers to facilitate mass migration, any sort of university that's putting forward this anti-Canadian policy, funding needs to be revoked. These people need to be punished, and we need to, purge IRCC, Immigrations, Refugees Canada, the CBSA. We need to purge all of this anti-Canadian sentiment from government departments. We need to disband these diploma mills. We need to persecute anyone that's been grifting off of mass immigration, that's been facilitating this anti-Canadian process. It's not enough to just shut down the system. The people that took advantage of it, the people that destroyed Canada to benefit themselves personally, need to be punished. That's the long and short of it. We need to fully dismantle the infrastructure that has facilitated mass immigration. Not just change the laws, but make sure that the people that have done this are properly punished. because it's a crime against the Canadian people. What they've done to our society is criminal. It's not acceptable. And we need to send a strong message to future generations, to the world around, that this is not tolerated anymore in Canada. So that's step 10. And last but certainly not least is repealing the Multiculturalism Act. This is behind a lot of the cultural problems in our society. It facilitates all sorts of, this discrimination cases, all sorts of foreign funding to foreign religious festivals, all sorts of things like this. And it fundamentally transformed what Canadian identity is, right? We went from a proud bicultural Anglo-French nation, home of the Canadian people, to this multicultural society where we're a nation of immigrants. Anyone from anywhere can come here and be Canadian, and so on. This is not an accurate representation of Canadian identity, Canadian history. We're going to expunge this. We're going to remove it from the charter. We're going to remove the Multiculturalism Act from law. And furthermore, we're going to replace it with a National Cohesion Act. This would affirm Canada's founding as a historically Christian, European, bicultural, Anglo-French society. And this would allow for all sorts of downstream pressures on things like the education system, which is not a federal jurisdiction, right? It's a provincial jurisdiction. All the different provinces have their own education systems, but we use this at the federal level to pressure provinces to update things like their curriculums, so students are not being indoctrinated with this cultural mosaic, multiculturalist mumbo jumbo, this anti-white, anti-Canadian understanding of our history that frames the founders, the builders of our country as villains, as evil colonists, and so on, that puts forward a positive, proud, glorious interpretation of Canadian identity and Canadian history to better educate our students, to make sure that the next generation is a generation of nationalists that are proud of their country, that want to serve their country, that want a cohesive community again. So it would all start, and this would also have the downstream effects, not only within the education system, but within the civil service at all levels. We're no longer doing all this multiculturalism stuff. Canada is a proud, bicultural, Anglo-French country. Canadians are the descendants of the settlers, farmers, builders, and explorers that founded and settled Canada. We're not just a home for anyone from anywhere anymore. And that's going to be reflected in our education system and our public service. And it all starts with a new National Cohesion Act that would promote cultural unity instead of this pluralistic, multicultural society that Canada's become. Now, that is the plan. 11 steps, 3 phases to save Canada. I think we could do this within, if we got a favorable government in power with a majority government, I think we could move on all these steps within the course of probably 4 to 10 years. It would probably take 2 administrations to fully institute this. I think this could create a very popular government that would have massive support from the people, that would continue on, that would be able to serve the multiple administrations in order to create the sort of massive cultural change that we'd like to see. It won't be easy, but it is necessary. So just like we saw the left transform our society, right? Canada was not always a multicultural society, right? Like, that is a transformation that has taken place since the 1960s. We're not totally transforming Canadian society. We're really just cleaning up the mess of the last 60 years, the elite imposed mess of the last 60 years, to revive Canadian identity. It's still living within us, right? We still have these kind of illiberal nationalist sentiments deep within us. We just need to wake that up within Canadians. We need to provide a clear right-wing nationalist alternative to the status quo. So that is my spiel for tonight. That's the remigration plan. 3 phases, 11 steps. That's how we fix Canada. So, on that note, 2 hours in. So where are the boys that love the long live streams? Where this one's for you. This one's for you guys. Uh, yeah. So we'll take some questions. We'll take some questions for a bit, and then I have a nice little rant to end us off. But that's the plan, boys. I know a lot of people have been. When are you doing it? You've been talking about it for so long? There, I did it. There's the plan. 11 steps. Remigration now. Give me your questions, bros. What are you? Wait, are you telling me? Oh, that's not good. I'm not pro-Israel. I'm pro-Canada. Nothing like that. Is that clear enough? I don't know why people accuse me of being pro-Israel. I'm not pro any foreign country. I'm pro-Canada. Oh, so I missed some super chats, boys. I'm so sorry. Sorry. Let's go back through the super chats first. Just 7025 $20. Thank you so much for the support. I work in forestry in BC, and when I hire young Canadians, I pay above industry wages while trying to give them skills to take the next to their next job. Beautiful. We love to see that. Be the change you want to see in the world. You have to lead from the front. Thank you for your support. We got $10 from Neo San Fedisto. Thanks for reading the chat, big man Dan, and thanks for your hard work from Alberta. Also, the toques and scarves go hard. Will there be a summer merch drop? Yeah. We're working on a new merch drop. It should be coming down soon. Not exactly sure when. New line of hoodies and t-shirts and hats are coming first, and then we'll be doing some summer merch after that. Some shorts and some tank tops and stuff like that. Mords 6748 $20. Thank you so much for the support, Mords. I really appreciate it. Don't give up the good work. I'm not giving up anytime soon. I'm all in on this. I'm all in on Canada. I'm not giving up for anything. At Gman8573 $5. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. Canadien Français de Gaspésie. Love the content. We love our Francophone brothers. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much for the support. Let's go back over to the main chat. Do we have some questions? Sorry, I was late on the super chats. I was so locked into the remigration plan. I wasn't watching the chat enough. Thank you for giving me so much hope. That's what I'm here for. Daniel, are you pro-white? I am pro-white. I am pro-Canadian. What part of Canada first and Canada only do you guys not understand? I thought it was pretty simple, man. Like, it's kind of implied that I'm not pro-India, pro-Israel, pro-China. I'm pro-Canada. It's that simple. Generally speaking, how easy is it for foreigners to acquire citizenship? It kind of depends on what channel they're coming through. But if you have a child here, you'll probably get citizenship through family reunification. It really depends on what stream you're coming through. Who's this guy? At GDub. I've never heard of this guy. Which remigration policy do you think is the most underrated? That's an interesting question, Greg. Underrated. I really think that the birthright citizenship stuff is huge. It has so many downstream impacts, and especially for being retroactive with things, I think it solves a lot of the program. But also the permanent residence, I think that's a huge way of quickly removing a lot of people without having to get into kind of constitutional discussions on revoking citizenships and stuff. So either of those two, I would say, are pretty underrated. You don't see them talked about quite as much. About the 20% remittance tax, wouldn't it be better to cancel all foreign aid rather than putting a tax? So foreign aid and remittances are different. Foreign aid is just the money we give to foreign countries to help with things like making roads and putting up signs to get them to stop pooping on beaches and stuff. So all foreign aid should definitely be cut. Remittances are the money that the people here, the immigrants here, are sending back to their family through, e-transfers and stuff. I didn't say a 20% tax. I'm not quite sure where we'd set that taxation level. 50%, 80%, 100%. I'm not saying 20%, but remittances and foreign aid are not the same thing. Drop a polo for summer. We do actually have a polo that is available. It is gorgeous. It's 100% cotton, beautiful kind of golf shirt style thing with an embroidered DS logo on the chest, but it is exclusive for our volunteers. So if you want one, you got to sign up as a member, you got to sign up as a volunteer, and then you get access to the exclusive volunteer polo. And it is elite. It is I think it's my favorite piece of merch we put out so far. So, but you have to get involved if you want to earn that. Where are the questions? My friend Imperial, Daniel, wouldn't it be better to just seize assets of these individuals or at least raise it to 50%? Yeah, I didn't say 20%. I don't know where 20% came from. A remittance tax would be much simpler, legally speaking, than seizing people's assets on mass, but that might be necessary some way down the line. Is your merch made in Canada? Some of it is, some of it isn't. It's really hard to get financially like affordable merchandise made in Canada. There's really not many options. As much as I would like to do everything done in Canada, the reality is most of our manufacturing has been offshored. That's out of my control. So a lot of our merch is all of our merch is at least finished in Canada. It's embroidered or screen printed here in Canada. A lot of the base stuff has to come from foreign countries, unfortunately. But we do have a few made in Canada options that are flagged on the website. I think the toques and the scarves are all made here in Canada, but a lot of the t-shirts and stuff, the base comes from abroad and then it's finished here. It's just the way it has to be, guys. Like, unless you guys want the merch to be twice, 3 times, 4 times as expensive. Need a hockey jersey. Yeah, maybe we'll do that over next winter. That would be really cool. I want one of those too. But I don't think that's good for the summer line. Right now we're pivoting to summer wear. Would a fine for speaking foreign languages in public be a good idea or ineffective? Should rules be different for tourists, for citizens? I think this would be hard to enforce. Like, what are we going to have? Like, speech enforcement officers everywhere. I think it's important to we have much more control on offering services and stuff like that, as I was kind of laying out earlier, making sure schooling, making sure all public services, healthcare, all this stuff is offered in only English and French, making sure all business signage, all business is done in English and French. This is very feasible. I think it's much more practical than just kind of enforcing it in public. And this would make so people have to learn the language. It would have a downstream effect of cutting down on things like speaking foreign languages in public spaces. But I think that's a more practical way of kind of creating that. Daniel, how's that shoulder coming along? Are you ready for trend season? It's getting a bit better. I've been rushing back to exercising, working out, and it's just been slowing down my recovery. For the last week, I've been on a total pause, no working out at all, just some basic rehab stuff to get the motion back. It is feeling pretty good. I'm hopeful that I'll be able to get back to my workout routine next week and get really juiced up for summer. But it's all natty. It's all natty, boys. We don't need to be getting sketchy hormones and peptides and all that stuff. We need to be eating a good diet, working out regularly, and getting huge for White Boy Summer. How can we highlight the need for remigration from first principles? Many Canadians remain under the Pravda media spell. They don't understand why mass immigration has been so detrimental. I don't know if I agree with that. Mass immigration is incredibly unpopular according to public opinion polls. Like, 65% of people support mass deportations. Mass immigration is wildly unpopular, even amongst immigrants. A majority support mass deportations. Like mass immigration, it's undeniable the impacts that it's had on society culturally, economically. It's a very unpopular position. Now, this notion that can like these kind of foundational notions of Canada being a nation of immigrants and stuff like that, the cultural mosaic, these are more kind of built into people. But I think that there are very clear arguments against this, and it's just a matter of knowing your history, the sociology behind Canada, the ethnic history of the waves of settlers that founded Canada. I would strongly recommend reading Dr. Ricardo Duchesne's book Canada in Decay, where he explains the kind of whole history behind the changes in immigration policy and the waves of settlers and the ethnic make of Canada throughout our history, to better understand that and to be able to deliver those arguments clearly and effectively to people. Because I think all these things can be very easily diffused. It's just people are so steeped in this culture through academia, through media, and so on. But really, we need to build this metapolitical alternative. People don't understand what I'm talking about when I say metapolitics, and it's all the surrounding systems, right? It's media, it's news, it's academia. It's giving people the arguments and the logic to advance our cause outside of the political realm in order to make those downstream impacts on our politics. So, on a personal level, I think it's about knowing our history and knowing the arguments in order to deliver that in a clear and respectful manner. If we started right now, how long would this all take? I said a couple times, I think it'll take I think if we had a majority government, if we had public opinion on our side, it could get done within 10 years. Thoughts on reindustrialization? Absolutely. We need to bring back manufacturing to Canada. Now, the globalization has had terrible impacts on Canadian society, and we need to bring that back here. But first, we need remigration. That's the number one priority. Remigration, then reindustrialization. Restore, remigration, reindustrialization, restoration. I like it. Do I have to pay landlord seek? You'll have to work that out with your landlord, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. You got to pay with your dollars. I gotta say, Twitter commenters are kind of unhinged. I think I like the YouTube commenters better. Did you go to that event down south last weekend? I don't know what event you're talking about. We got another super chat here. Another super chat from Neo San Sanfedisto. I don't know. My pronunciation's no good. With the announcement today on Alberta's immigration referendums, many of the questions are clearly linked to remigration policies. Could Domsock play a role in influencing the referendum? I think that's an interesting proposal. I haven't seen the most recent updates on what the referendum will be. As I understood it, it was very much about just giving services to immigrants. I would be interested in helping to promote that, but it's hard to get too intertwined with that given the kind of soft question, I think. But I didn't see today's news, so maybe I need to re-update that. We do have a good organization out in Alberta, and I think we could help kind of steward that and make for a more successful referendum, and that could have very positive effects across the country if Alberta kind of gives that precedent, like credibility. It's something that could kind of take off across the country, so it could be a very important referendum, I think. Do you think a moratorium should be held for more than 10 years? Perhaps. We'd have to kind of play that by ear. I think 10 years is a good start as we implement the rest of our kind of remigration plan. but we could kind of make a decision from there. And when we reopen immigration, I think we should approach things very differently. It should be very restricted to very unique economic situations, and it should only be coming from countries that are culturally similar to Canada. Obvious ones being countries like France and in the United Kingdom, countries consistent with Canada's heritage. It should be vastly limited, the countries we accept immigrants from, much like it was for most of Canada's history. Can you give us some dreams and talk about how Canada will look like after the 11 steps? I mean, it'll be much more familiar. It'll be much more orderly. We'll bring back a sense of community and national pride, a sense of not only community but identity, a common understanding of our history. Uh, you know, uh, our cultural festivals will be unifying rather than foreign. Um, it would be much like the country many of us grew up in, a country that has become so different, so foreign over the last few years, over the last 20 years. Um, I was born into a very different country than I'm living in now. And really, I just want to go back. And so many of our problems are kind of downstream from this kind of very liberal, multiculturalist attitude it's atomized society, which has caused so many other issues, right? There's no sense of communities. We've lost these kind of third spaces. Part of this has come down to secularization and the decline of the power of the church. Uh, we don't have these kind of communities, which means people can't meet each other, and people can't. We have this dysfunctional kind of dating market, which has downstream impacts on family formation and child rearing. I think that through remigration, we can recapture our common sense of identity and culture and and rebuild the kind of sense of community that we once had, right? Like when I was a kid, you could go out and be unsupervised, and it wasn't even that you weren't worried that someone was going to hurt your child. It was that the people in your community knew your child and they knew how to get in contact with you if something happened. Like there was a real community, and now it's not like that. No one knows their neighbors. There's no common kind of uh, sentiment binding Canada together, and that comes from this very multiculturalist attitude, where in this very liberal attitude, where we're all just kind of atomized individuals, where everyone's culture is legitimate and equal and stuff. No, we want a single unifying community to rally around. I think that's very important for a functional country. How many members do we have now? We're up above 2,500 now. We're up above 2,500. Another super chat here from Lunar 1842. The Canadian census is this year. What's your estimate for how many heritage Canadians are left? Since 2021, it was around 70%, I believe. I think it was a bit lower than that. I think it was in the 60s. I would imagine we're in the mid to low 50s now. And I mean, that's just in terms of white people, right? Some of those are immigrants as well, although much less of them. So I would expect to see that we're now like 55% white or something like that. We'll have to wait and see. Oh, the one with fairy. No, I wasn't able to make it to that event. Unfortunately, I was supposed to go, but my dog had a veterinary emergency. I had to cancel. But he's all good now. He's all good. He's conked out on my bed right now, all healthy, all recovered. But I had to skip that event, unfortunately. Did I vote for the PPC? I voted for the PPC in 2019 when I worked for the PPC. I voted for the PPC in 2021 when I worked for the PPC. I did not vote for the PPC in the last election. I didn't vote for anyone. I wrote Remigration Now on my ballot and I submitted it. I spoiled it. But I couldn't stand not going and filling out a ballot somehow. But Daniel, deportations would cost money. Remigration is too flippin' expensive. We spend too much money on stupid bullshit now. Foreign aid and all these stupid projects to promote multiculturalism and stuff. All this money can be repurposed towards remigration. We can open new revenue pathways like the remittance tax that I already mentioned to support remigration. And immigration itself is a tax on our society, not only through remittances, but through unproductive people coming through all sorts of different pathways. In the long term, remigration is going to be economically beneficial to Canada, not a drain on our system. Okay. It looks like that's all the questions, unless we have a couple more coming in. I do have a little rant, and then I need to wrap this up, guys. It is late. It's my bedtime. I need my beauty sleep. Greg, I hope you can compliment my mic setup after after this live stream. I think I got it right this time. I think I took your advice, buddy. I think I cleaned up my act. I think I cleaned it up. Okay. Okay. It doesn't look like any more. Okay is Arthur's trigger word, so he keeps jumping every time I say it. To close out today's show, I have a little rant in mind that I wanted to get off my chest, and it was about a clip that I saw on Twitter.com the other day. It's something if you follow me on Twitter, I did respond to it there, but I want to elaborate on my thoughts a little bit more, get a little bit more off my chest. So this clip was posted by he must be sleeping a lot. You're too kind, D Canuck 5514. You're a sweetheart. So this clip was from that interview that Poilievre did with Diary of a CEO a couple weeks ago. I pulled up a clip a couple weeks ago and reacted to that. But this one was posted earlier this week by Mark Nixon, who's a big social media influencer, I suppose. And he was posting it as a good thing. Let me see if I can see what he said. Let me get my facts right. So he posted this clip. He said, "This is the reason the Liberals are terrified of Pierre Poilievre and want him gone. He stands for freedom." So he posted this as a favorable thing about Pierre Poilievre's politics. But I have a bit of a different take. So let's watch the clip together and then we'll talk about it.
Push a socialist ideology have a gross contradiction in their view of human nature. They say that human beings are wretched, self-interested, greedy when they're in the private voluntary economy, but they're angels when they're in the governmental economy. And therefore they argue that the government should just control everything, because then we have all these angels that will decide for us, decide how our money is spent, what we're supposed to believe in the modernist day, what kind of vehicles we drive, what we should think. But that is a huge contradiction. If man is not capable of deciding for himself, surely he's not capable of deciding for others. And I think the worst vices in human nature come out when there is too much power concentrated in their hands. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So my ideology is that we should disperse power, that it should be a bottom-up system with as much freedom and agency as humanly possible, that people should be free to choose for themselves. The purpose of the government is to do only those things people cannot do for themselves.
So there's the clip. And it's being pushed around by all these slopulists saying why they, so one, the Runaway song in the background, it got me triggered. We have a much better edit to that song. Maybe I'll play it at the end of the episode if I can pull it up quick. But this is being pushed around by slopulists as a reason why Pierre Poilievre is a good alternative, whereas I see this clip as a perfect explanation of the flaws in Pierre Poilievre's general kind of right liberal brand of conservatism. So there's two kind of main things problems that I see from the kind of political perspective that he's putting forward in this clip. So one, it's that Pierre Poilievre and conservatives like him that are really just classical liberals, they're very much liberals, right? The whole political spectrum is dominated by liberals, right? We have left liberals, which is the capital L Liberal Party, and we have right liberals, which are the conservatives. But both agree on this post-war egalitarian universalist system. And Pierre Poilievre just wants a smaller government, right? That's his whole kind of driving force behind his politics. He believes foundationally that power is an evil in society and that it must be minimized. But in reality, power is not good or bad. Power is inherently amoral. It's a reality of nature, of life. Nature is not equal, it's not egalitarian. Nature is hierarchical, right? The strongest survives. That is how reality, how nature functions. But Pierre sees power, and conservatives like him see power as an evil that needs to be limited by government. Government needs to be smaller and downsized, and that will make things better. This is the foundational flaw of his brand of politics, because power is just innate to society, right? It's not something that needs to be minimized. We need a right-wing alternative in Canada that is willing to not limit power, but wield power in line with right-wing principles. This is why our society keeps on drifting left and left and left. Progressives, liberals, left-wingers, whatever you want to call them, they're willing to wield power. When they get power, they use it to reward their friends and punish their enemies. They gas money into the anti-hate network to vilify anyone on the right, to astroturf this narrative that they're hateful bigots and undermine them, get them canceled, so on. They put money into the universities to sway them in line with their values. They make sure their people are installed on board of directors and at museums and all these institutions within society to normalize their worldview and create a meta-political system around supporting their values. Conservatives get in and they try and trim away at the edges of liberal excess. The most ridiculous stuff gets trimmed away, but they don't actually reorient society, right? They just try and make the government smaller. They try and make it less excessive, trim away at the edges. But in what is necessary, and as a result, since liberals push everything left, conservatives get in, they trim away a little bit, then liberals get in power and they push things left. And as a result, we've seen a massive shift in our society because the conservatives have been an ineffective alternative, right? They're just opposition. They don't actually provide a cohesive alternative, a way to wield power in line with society. You can't just eliminate power. Power will always exist. If you trim away at government power, it just goes elsewhere, right? A smaller government is just easier to run over for economic elites or foreign powers, multinational corporations. These are the people that benefit from massive cuts to government, right? That they just want to deregulate things, liberalize the system, but it doesn't eliminate power, which is their evil, right? It just shifts it to different entities, right? Elites, economic elites, multinational corporations, oligopolies, all of these are just going to take advantage of the power vacuum offered by the conservatives. We need a right-wing alternative in Canada that offers a cohesive vision for the direction of our country, the way they want to wield power in order to accomplish a positive vision for our society in the direction of the country. That's what Canadians want. That's why they're placated with people like Mark Carney, even though they're doing undemocratic things like forging a majority government out of floor crossers or whatnot. This is all that conservatives can complain about. But he is wielding power to accomplish a broader vision, a vision that I don't agree with personally, but he is willing to do what is necessary to push the country in line with his vision. The conservatives don't want to do that. They just want to trim away. And this is the foundational problem with the Conservative Party. They are liberals at heart. What we need is an actual alternative. We need nationalism. We need, and this, like, these things are a juxtaposition, right? Liberalism says that anyone can be Canadian. Nationalism says no, Canadians are Canadians and immigrants are not Canadians. Like, it is an illiberal philosophy, an illiberal ideology at its heart. So we need a real nationalist, illiberal alternative to the liberal status quo in order to take Canada in a different direction. We need a government that is willing to reward its friends and punish its enemies. We need a Conservative Party to get in power and not just trim away, right? We need to purge the bureaucracy of people that are not in line with the outlook of the government. We need a conservative government that's not just going to trim away at government spending, that's going to spend on making sure that our institutions, our universities are promoting a clear nationalist, pro-Canada, not this anti-Canadian multiculturalism, pushing the entire metapolitical apparatus in a different direction, funding our own favorable media, not defunding the CBC, but reorienting it towards a nationalist purpose, making sure that the CBC is promoting, glorifying our history, promoting a positive vision for Canadian society instead of tearing it down. It's not enough to just trim away at things. That's not going to be enough. Canada has been transformed radically over the last 60 years. It needs to be dramatically transformed in a different direction. And the Conservatives are not willing to do that. They just want to trim away at the excesses. And that's not what Canadians want. And that's why the Conservatives will continue to fail unless they're able to offer a cohesive alternative for the direction of the country. It's not enough to just be like, oh, like, maybe it was enough during Trudeau, when Trudeau was like so extreme and so exuberant and so culturally Marxist, that it was enough to be like, let's not talk about the cultural issues and just focus on the economy. But that's not the situation anymore. Now we need a right-wing alternative in this country that will wield power in order to transform Canada in a different direction. We're not satisfied with the way that it's going. It's not good enough to press pause. We need to go back. It's not enough to just stop immigration. It needs to be reversed. So that's number one. The other one is just this like attitude that individuals are inherently good and that government is inherently bad and the power needs to be distributed back to the individuals. And I think this is a very it is like vaguely populist and like empowering, I suppose, but it's just dishonest. Like, I think anyone can realize, especially through the last like 60 years of just expanding liberalism, right? This notion that we're all atomized individuals. There's no nation, there's no community. We just have to do what's best for the abstract individual. Everyone's equal. Everyone's culture is equal. This liberal attitude that's adopted by both the right and the left has been so destructive for our society. And like, it's led to this kind of hedonistic attitude. The thing is, I think everyone can realize that human beings are inherently flawed, right? While sure, some people, a select few, will benefit from more freedom. This is the kind of pitch, this kind of beautiful lie that elites try and impose on us so they can take advantage of the working class, so they can take advantage of average Canadians by gaming the system to drive down wages, drive up asset prices, drive up housing prices. This is that beautiful lie that liberalism is, that we just need to make for more freedom and everything will be better. But I think it's very clear after the last kind of 50, 60 years of more and more and more freedom that it's not what people need. Like, most people want routine, they want structure, they want order. And the government can offer that. The government can provide direction on what the culture should be, for how society should be structured. It has the ability to impose order for the benefit of people. When just left to their own devices, people just end up, doing drugs. And I'm not even talking about like the people that you see fent folded on the street like zombies, like just people drinking and getting high all the time, living alone in this atomized society with no sense of community. Like, people need order and structure. We need to accept that man is by nature flawed and needs to do more to achieve greatness. So this whole attitude that, we just need to cut down government and people, if we just put people in control of their own lives, it'll be for the best for everyone. I think over the last few decades, it's become so clear that that's just a lie. Like, it's this beautiful lie that doesn't actually work in practice. And what is actually necessary is for the government to step in and enforce culture, enforce identity, create the space for communities and societies. And that's what everyone is yearning for. We don't want to live in this atomized multiculturalist society where everything's unfamiliar and everyone just sits in their pod and watches Netflix and jerks off and smokes pot and stuff. We want to aspire to something greater together as a society. We want to build big, great things. We want to have bigger aspirations. We want to have communities and social structures and third spaces where we can interact with people that are like us, that grew up together, that have similar experiences, that are part of this extended family that the nation is. I'm so tired of this sort of liberal attitude that we get from apparently right-wing politicians. And people will criticize me for being too hard on Pierre Poilievre. You focus too much on Pierre. Why don't you attack Mark Carney? Blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, like, I kind of accept the left for what they are. The problem is that the right is also on the left. They're all liberals. It's right liberals and left liberals. So I'm hard on the conservatives because regardless of what Wyatt Claypool says, I am right wing and I want a real right wing alternative for Canadian society. I want a society that is based in our heritage and identity, that recognizes power as a reality and hierarchy as natural, that benefits merit and prioritizes faith and community. And I think that sort of message would resonate much further with Canadians than this kind of half-baked small government liberalism that the conservatives have to offer. So that's my big. Thanks for the super chat, Cox 798. No trim, chop chop. Thank you for all the support. Again, that's my big rant for today. We got through the whole remigration plan. I got that off my chest. Thank you so much for tuning in, for sticking around for almost 3 hours, our longest live stream ever. I do encourage everyone to head over to our website, dominionsociety.ca. If you can afford it, send us a small donation. Everything goes back into the organization and helps us grow. Become a member so you can get involved in your community and be a part of the change to create this movement that we need to take our country back. Make sure you're following on social media and all that stuff. And, we'll be back next week, Thursday at the same time as usual, to keep talking about how we're going to take back our country. So have a great night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and long live Canada.